has a straight edge on it, so it's very easy. And maybe in our world here, there lives a happy little mountain.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Caitlin and I upload a whole bunch of different types of videos on this channel, mainly around sort of true crime, mystery, murders, disappearances, psychological experiment videos, all things like that. And I also have a little bit of like uni related videos and lifestyle videos sprinkled in where I can. So today I would like to introduce you to day one of my true crime week. So I'm going to be uploading a true crime video every day of this week from Monday to Sunday, just because it's actually my freshers week when you'll be seeing this, so I wanted to upload kind of like a video every day. So clear your schedule for this week because I will have a true crime video up for you every single day. So today's case, we're going to be discussing the murder of a woman named Latricia White and then the subsequent disappearance of a man named Lee Wackerhagen and his son Chance Wackerhagen. I'm sorry if I mispronounce that, it's kind of a difficult last name to say. But yes, if you want to hear a little bit about sort of what happened, how these are related, then keep on watching and we should just get started. So Chance Wackerhagen at the time of all of this occurring was a 9-year-old boy. He had blonde hair, blue eyes, and in 1993 he had gone to stay with his dad and his dad's girlfriend Latricia White over the Christmas period because his parents were separated, and the plan was for him to spend Christmas Day with his mum, but kind of the days leading up to Christmas with his dad. His dad and his long-term girlfriend lived in a place called Lockhart in Texas. His name was Lee Wackerhagen and he worked as a local truck driver, and at that point he was in a serious relationship with a 38-year-old woman called Latricia White. They were both divorcees with children and they kind of lived together in this Lockhart home. Latricia had 2 children from her previous marriage and they lived with her the majority of the year, whereas Lee only had Chance, the 9-year-old boy. He was his only son and he lived with his mother the majority of the year. So like I said, the plan had been for Chance to return home to his mother's house just in time for Christmas Day, but the plan changed when a couple days before Christmas Chance called up his mum and said that he was having so much fun with his dad and his dad's girlfriend and the children that he wanted to stay a little bit longer, so a few days over Christmas and after Christmas, and his mum said that was okay. On December 27th, 1993, things took a turn when Latricia, Lee's girlfriend, her dad noticed that she hadn't turned up for work that morning as she was supposed to, and she was usually a really reliable employee. As this was, like I said, particularly kind of strange behaviour, this was really unusual, his first port of call was to pop over to their home and check to see if she was okay, assuming that she was probably just ill. But sadly, upon entering her home, he found Latricia's body. She was lying in bed. She'd been shot in the head 6 times with a .22 caliber gun. There was no sign of Lee or Chance, and Lee's truck was also not parked in its usual spot in the driveway. When authorities arrived on the scene, they found no sign of struggle, forced entry, a break-in, anything like that, and also nothing appeared to be missing from the home except for Lee and Chance. They did, however, discover a footprint inside a patch of blood. So it had obviously been stepped in after the murder had happened, and it was later determined to be Chance's footprint. So obviously, as I'm sure you've your mind has gone to this, like my mind first went to this when I first read this. The first suspect was obviously Lee. So like I said, there was no sign of a struggle or forced entry of anything, and so since they were both missing, it did appear, or like the most likely scenario would appear, that Lee had shot his girlfriend and then gone on the run and taken 9-year-old Chance with him. When they kind of pressed this, they asked witnesses or like they asked kind of loved ones. It was kind of known around the area that Lee did have a bit of a temper. He could get quite angry sometimes. He wasn't ever really violent towards Latricia or Chance, but people have said that there were kind of some quite heated arguments, like he was known to lose his temper a bit. And as well as this, he was prone to extreme jealousy. Like one of his biggest weaknesses was being jealous of Latricia, having an affair or someone else liking Latricia. Latricia's family in particular had kind of supported this claim. They said that they themselves had witnessed many heated arguments between Latricia and Lee. Lee's ex-wife also came forward and said that he was prone to be extremely argumentative, and so this just made Lee look more and more suspicious. investigators were able to determine that the last known public sighting of all three of them, so Latricia, Chance and Lee, was in a restaurant on December 26th of that year. They had apparently seemed to be extremely good moods. There weren't any arguments. The witness who had seen them in this restaurant said that there appeared to be nothing wrong in particular between Latricia and Lee. Apparently they looked like they were having such a good time that they painted the picture of like a typical happy family. Despite this claim, all of the kind of suspicion around Lee just seemed too much to ignore, and so they continued forward with Lee being their prime suspect. A number of warrants were issued for Lee, so not only for interference with custody but also murder. So warrants were issued for Lee's capture. They sent out warrants for charges of first-degree murder, interference with custody and unlawful flight to avoid prosecution, because like I said, the only evidence they had to go on suggested that Lee was the perpetrator of this murder. 3 days after the discovery of Latricia's body, investigators managed to find Lee's truck. It had been abandoned in Austin, Texas, which is about 30 miles away from their home in Lockhart. So there was no sign of either him or Chance, but they did find his truck. Inside the truck they found a number of things belonging to Lee. So they found his wallet, they found a checkbook, and strangely they found a hunting rifle. And you might kind of assume that, oh, you know, Latricia had been shot 6 times in the head and he is the prime suspect, and that's obviously what investigators thought. But when they tested the gun, they found that it had never been fired from, so there was no way it could have been the murder weapon. They also found a number of Christmas presents in the back of the truck. A number of them had yet to be opened. They were all wrapped perfectly, but some of them did have blood smeared on them. Investigators initially assumed that this blood that was on the presents, they assumed the presents had been taken straight from the house, from the crime scene, and that the blood was likely to be Latricia's, because obviously she had been shot 6 times, which I still can't get over. But they later tested it. They tried to do a DNA test and they found that they could confirm it wasn't Latricia's blood. They didn't know whose it was, but at that point they just knew that whoever blood was in the car, it wasn't Latricia's. They were, however, able to determine that whoever's blood it was, so whoever had suffered this blood loss, they'd only suffered from a minor injury. It wasn't anything fatal, so it could have just literally been an accident, it could have been a cut, but it wasn't anything fatal. Throughout the investigation, as you can imagine, there was a huge conflict of views on what people thought had happened that night. Many of Latricia's family were adamant. They were sure, or that at least they believed, that Lee was the one who had murdered Latricia, because like I said, they came forward claiming they were aware of Lee being particularly aggressive towards her. However, Lee's family were adamant that he would never hurt Latricia or Chance, and they believed that a third party must have been involved. Something would have happened because it wouldn't have been Lee in their eyes. Nothing new appeared in the investigation until around 4 months after the discovery of Latricia's body, when Chance's grandfather on his mother's side, so Chance's mother's dad, he received an anonymous phone call. When he picked up the phone, he heard what he believed was a young boy's voice saying "help me," before it sounded like what he said, someone else coming through the call, yanking the receiver out of the young boy's hand and forcibly hanging up. He barely heard this voice. He said the voice kind of whispered, but he was adamant that the voice was that of his grandson Chance, and he himself went ahead in hopes that Chance and Lee was still alive. In May of 2016, investigators claimed they came across a new piece of evidence or information that confirmed to them that Lee was not the perpetrator of Latricia's murder, and that Lee and Chance had been involved in some sort of foul play at the hands of a third party who actually also definitively killed Latricia. They never released what this piece of evidence was. It's not been released, but as a result of this new piece of evidence that came out, Chance and Lee have been cleared. Obviously Chance wasn't really a suspect, but Lee has been cleared of any involvement in Latricia's murder, and investigators are continuing this investigation along the lines that Chance and Lee had also been taken against their will. To make this official, Lee's status was changed from suspect to missing, and obviously Chance has always been missing. So unfortunately, that is everything I have for you today. There are no updates on who could have potentially killed Latricia and what has happened to Chance and Lee. So I'm really interested with this one to hear your guys' theories on where you think Chance and Lee are, what happened to them, whether you think they're alive or not, whether you think, you know, what the scenario was, or why would someone kill Latricia, because it appears as though there was no reason to. So I really want to hear your guys' thoughts. Leave them in the comments down below. I love hearing your guys' discussions. And also leave me any cases you want me to discuss in future weeks' videos. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this interesting, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the next instalment of True Crime Week. Bye.